Hi, I'm Dave from Hectors Smokehouse and welcome back to the channel. It's been a long time since I've been here, probably 2 years since my last video. We bought a new house and some new land, and it's taken a couple of years to do a lot of landscaping and to get the garden to where we wanted it, so I haven't been able to do a lot of videos. But hopefully we're just about finished now, and so I should be able to start producing a little bit more content. If this is the first time you've been to the channel, welcome to the channel, and hopefully if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. So today what I'm going to be doing is cooking a porchetta. So that's some pork belly that I'm going to roll with some herbs and garlic inside, and we're going to be cooking it on the Komodo Kamado grill, and it's going to take about 3 or 4 hours to actually cook. But this is a wonderful recipe that's worked really well for me in the past, so I'll take you on the journey and go through all the steps to make the porchetta. So for this porchetta recipe, we're going to use a 2 kilo piece of pork belly. So that's around about 4.5 pounds in terms of US weight. And the ingredients we're going to need for this is a series of herbs. So what we've got is we've got some rosemary, and we have some thyme, we've got some tarragon, some sage, rather a lot of garlic. So in there we're going to use probably 6 or 7 bulbs of garlic. We have some fennel pollen. So this is a little bit different. It's not normal fennel seed, so this is fennel pollen, and it's supposed to be quite authentic. So I've got about 3 grams of fennel pollen, some salt as well, so some kosher salt, a little bit of pepper, and some chili sprinkles as well, and then finally some lemon zest. And also what we're going to need to do this recipe is we're going to also need to have a rule. So I'm using a steel rule and also a Stanley knife, and this is going to be used for scoring the skin. So when we score the skin, it's going to make it nice and crispy, and also take in some of that salt. So we're going to use these to actually score the skin as well. So I'm also going to chop up some garlic, probably about half of a bulb. Normally I end up with 6, medium-sized cloves of garlic, but these ones are really big, so I'm only really using 4 of these that I'm going to mince and put into there. So there's the ingredients prepped. These are about 1.5 tablespoons. That's 1.5 tablespoons of rosemary, 1.5 tablespoons of sage, 1.5 tablespoons of tarragon, probably 1/2 to 3/4 of a tablespoon of thyme, 1 whole lemon, which has been just taken the rind off and done that lightly. And then 1/2 a bulb of garlic has gone into there as well. So now we've got the filling done, we're now going to start looking at the pork belly. So this pork belly is around about 2 kilos, so around about 4.5 pounds. And it's nice and fatty. And what we're going to do is I'm going to use a steel rule, and I'm going to use a Stanley knife just to put lots and lots of slices in, round about 5 millimeters apart, so probably around about 1/4 inch apart. And then once I've done that and scored the skin, I'm going to turn it over. I'll do a few little scores on the underneath of the belly just to rub all the garlic in and some of the herbs into. And then we'll start to roll it and then tie it up. So tying up, I've got butcher's twine. I've cut probably 8 pieces of butcher's twine, round about 45 centimeters, which will be about 18 inches long. And then I'm going to use them to tie up the pork belly. So what you can see, I'm just going to lay the knife on. I've already cleaned the knife, actually used a Dettol wipe just to make sure it's got nothing on it, and the same with the blade of the Stanley knife. And all I'm going to do is go along and go into it. I want to be going in again 5 or 6 millimeters into the skin, which is around about 1/4 inch. And I'm only going probably 5 millimeters for each of the lines, which will again about 1/4 inch is the measurement that I'm using. So I'll just go through this. It's a bit tedious, so I'll speed this up and you can watch me finish off doing the slicing. So there you go, you can see all the scoring that's gone into the skin, and that's going to allow me to rub into there the salt. And again, just try and keep this nice and dry, and that should help with it crisping up when we get there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the meat over, and then just going to put a few extra crisscrosses into the meat. So I'm just going in not too deep with these, quite light. So I'm probably going in around about 5-6 millimeters, so about 1/4 inch into there. Then just going to go across the opposite way. So again, you can see the scoring in there. So I'll just move this to the side. And what I'm going to do now is start to lay out some of the string. So get the butcher's twine laid out, probably 1 inch, so maybe 25 mil, somewhere around there, between each piece of butcher's twine. Like so. Then we're going to put this back on. I'm going to see probably I've only ended up using about 6, but I can move these along if I need to later on, but it's just got them actually underneath there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start putting the herbs and all the filling onto the pork belly. We've now got the pork belly ready. It's all scored on both sides. We've got the butcher's twine underneath, so we're ready now to start putting the filling onto there, all of the herbs. So what we'll do is we'll start with the garlic. So we've got the garlic that we did earlier. Just going to put it all around. And I must admit, I do like garlic, as you can tell. So I'm going to try and push it into a lot of those cuts that we've actually put into the underside of the meat. I'm trying to get that in there so there's a good spreading of it everywhere. You can never ever use too little garlic. Definitely one of my favourite things in the world. So I've just got to make sure that's well spread around. So I've got plenty of garlic there. Then we'll start doing and layering on the herbs. So start off with rosemary. And again, we're just sprinkling that on. That's around about 1.5 tablespoons of rosemary. And my advice is not to go too heavy with the herbs. I've done it before where I've gone really heavy and it's not as good. 1.5 tablespoons of sage next. So we're just getting the sage onto there. Then we've got 1.5 tablespoons of tarragon. And that gives that aniseed flavour, which will also go with the flavour of the fennel pollen, which is very aniseedy as well. I do like tarragon. Goes really well with seafood as well, and chicken and lime and those type of things. But yep, so that's really good. Then we've got some sage. So this is probably around about round about 3/4 of a tablespoon. So not as much because it's got quite a bit of flavour in as thyme. So just spread a little bit of that on. But a little goes a long way and is very flavoursome. Then we've got the skin of 1 lemon. So again, he's just trying to make sure we've got that covered across all the slices so you get a little piece of that flavour in every slice that you eat. Then we're going to put a little bit of kosher salt on. Not a great deal. I'm just going to put a little bit in my hand. We're going to put a lot on the skin later on. So I'm just going to give this a bit of a sprinkle, but I'm not going to put a great deal on. So this is probably only 1/2 tablespoon, somewhere around there. But we're going to put a lot into the skin, so we don't need to go really heavy. We'll give it a little sprinkle as well of some pepper. Again, we're not going to go crazy. Probably a teaspoon in there that's gone on, maybe a bit less. Tiny sprinkling of some chili flakes, and I am talking just a sprinkle. We don't want to overpower. And then this is the last ingredient. So this is the fennel powder. This is 3 grams. It's a very small amount, but it goes a long way, and the flavour is so much better than, if you can get it, better than using fennel seeds and chopping them up. So I'm just going to put this on very lightly. But we'll use the whole 3 grams on this, or very close to it. In fact, I reckon we're about there. So I reckon we've used 2 grams. Probably don't need to use any more than that. It's probably enough for what we need. So there's about 2 grams of the fennel powder on there. So what we're going to do now is just going to press some of the herbs into the flesh, and then we're going to start the rolling process. Be very careful when you're doing the twine. I wrap it round probably 4 times and pull it tight. But if you're not careful when you're pulling it tight, you can actually catch your fingers and give yourself cuts. So just be very careful when you're actually pulling this butcher's twine in tight. So just pushing this down into the flesh side, get off as much as I can. And then we'll start to roll this up. Ideally, we want to come down a little bit. And we'll start off in the middle. So we'll pick this one in the middle. What I will do is just take these gloves off so I can grip the twine a little bit better. So what I'm doing is going around about 3 or 4 times. I'm going to try and keep into one of the grooves where I've actually done the slicing. And try and pull this tight. Now I know there's much better ways of doing this, but I'm not a butcher and I ain't that good at tying up pieces of meat. So this is the way I do it, but it's not ideal. So what I'll do is keep going along and tying up every inch or so. So the last part I'm going to do now is just going to rub some salt into the skin, and it gives the crackle a really crispy, when it gets crispy, it gives it a really salty, crackly flavour, which is absolutely awesome. So I'll go pretty hard at trying to put the salt into the skin and rub it in, and it doesn't detract and it's not too salty when you actually eat the meat together. What I'm going to do is just trying to rub it into that skin. We'll do this all the way around. So I'll probably put in just over a tablespoon each time onto my hand, and then just trying to make sure I spread it around and get it into the start and to the finish. And get plenty of that skin, the salt into the skin, and then we'll just do this last part here. And that's it done really. So now we're good to go. We can either put this in the fridge, if you want to put it in the fridge and let it rest for a while. You can actually wrap it up in cling film, saran wrap, and freeze it if you want to freeze it as well. But what I'm going to do, this is going to go straight onto the Komodo Kamado. Well, that's it. That's finished the cook, or the porchetta. Took around about 3.5 hours. So it was around about 3 hours on 350, around about 350 degrees F. And then the last half an hour on 500 F, just to finish it off. To an internal temperature of around about 198 is where I took it to. You can do it the other way around. You can actually start it off for half an hour at 500 and then crank it back to 350. Having a Komodo Kamado actually is more difficult trying to do that because it keeps the temperature really well. So trying to get it to come back down from 500 is difficult. So the best thing on something like a Komodo Kamado is to start it at 350 and then run it for the 3 hours. And then when you get to the last half an hour of cook, to crank it up to crisp up that skin. So finished the cook, it came out really well and looks really spot on. So let's have a look at what it looks like. So there you go. You can see exactly what the porchetta looks like. I think it looks pretty good, really good and crispy. So you can hear it's very crispy, which is really good. So we'll have a look and see what it looks like sliced up. So we'll do a few thinnish slices and you can hear that Crackle. And there you go. And see what that looks like. I'll do one more. So I'm only doing this thin. You can see it's really, really hot still. So yeah, you can see what this looks like inside. You can see the stuffing with all those different flavours. And then you've got this crispy skin. So let's have a go and see what it tastes like. Oh, that is so juicy. And that crackle is so crispy. It is delicious. You can really taste all the herbs in there. And the salt that's actually on that skin, on the outside of the skin. In terms of the herbs, you can really taste that fennel pollen. It really comes through, but then all the other herbs come through as well and complement it. That is so crispy and so fragrant. It smells amazing. I've cooked this quite a few times. It tastes fantastic when it's hot, but also it tastes just as good when it's cooled down. So once it's cooled down, we wrap it in foil and put it in the fridge, and then slice it into really thin slices, and we can either have it with sandwiches and put it into different types of sandwiches, or we cut thicker pieces. And what we've done in the past is actually cut them into little squares and then fried them in a pan and then added them to a thing like an omelette. So you can actually add that to an omelette. Or you can just cut it so that you've got thickish slices, sort of 10 millimeters, put it in a pan, fry it on both sides, and it renders even more fat out of there. And then serve it with something like potatoes or something like that, roast potatoes, and that's delicious as well. So having it cold, it goes really creamy and the fat goes really creamy. But when it's hot, it tastes delicious as well. So either way works really well. But this is pretty awesome. It's a recipe I've cooked quite a few times now, and it works really well. And the good thing is pork belly is very forgiving. So even if you take it out at 195, if you take it out at 205, it's pretty forgiving. If you go too far, then when you slice it, it falls apart. So try and keep it away from anything above 200, but just below 200, it's had a lot of time to let that fat render and make it really flavoursome, but then you've got that crispy skin as well. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you did enjoy it, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video.